Welcome to the final part of this lesson. We're now going to move into working on the sky and the reflection in the water, and then probably a little bit of combining the two, and then that'll be it. So as I say, we're not going for anything too ridiculously detailed today, just an impression. We're also trying to keep the time kind of relatively quick. So it's more like if you were to actually go out and work from a scene. So, to just recap, we've established the first part of the video. First part we watched, we went through this foreground tree clump and these little shrubs in front. We did the grass, and then in the second part we moved in and did the background trees, or kind of middle ground and then background hills, and established them relative to the values and colours in the foreground. So the final thing we're going to do is go and put the sky in, which is a sort of kind of blue-grey, I suppose. And I'm going to just start initially just working with black and white. You can actually get a great deal out of black and white as a mixture for skies. It can work really well. Just need to find a clean surface on my palette to mix. Probably that'll do. So I'll begin just by blocking in, maybe not a bad one for the dark. I'm going to add a touch of ultramarine blue. And get this sort of heavier cloud, sort of bluish heavy cloud that runs and just meets the top of that far hill. And it kind of carries up, drops back down over here, then lightens off a bit. So you might notice I'm sort of working the clouds as kind of a rolling bank, so giving them form. They kind of roll down in sort of barrel shape over the top there, and then sort of merge at this end and become relatively light just here underneath. Now there is a bit more going on in the sky, but this captures basically the simplest forms, which is all we're after for this portion of the painting. If we're going back to it, or if we were able to spend longer than just an hour or so, you could start to add more detail. But for the sake of this exercise, what you want to look at is what is the sky generally doing. What are the large kind of shifts in clouds or different colours. So as I paint the sky, I'm trying to still, if possible, even though I'm using a really broad brush, I want to try to add detail, kind of cut back, work back into those trees that are already there. Don't be afraid to really cake on the sky as well. even the clouds. But yeah, that's not too bad for what we're after. Just going to lighten this edge of the cloud to create a little bit of a gradient going from left to right, because it's less extreme, that kind of rolling shadow underneath once you get over to this side. And then we can move down into the reflection in the water. So the reflection, because it's slightly ripply, is actually a little bit darker in the sky. It's not always the case. If this water was a bit more even, it would be a lot more similar. It also depends on what part of the sky it's actually reflecting. So you may see a light portion of the sky, but the water is actually reflecting something higher up or lower down that you don't quite see, or that's hidden. So you want to be aware of that as well. The other advantage of keeping your kind of sky and reflection colours fairly thick relative to the trees is it can be easier to kind of, if you do need to kind of cut shapes into them, you won't blend. You'll be able to kind of cake paint over the top, which is actually useful. Otherwise you'll tend to get a kind of smudginess emerging, like just happened there. When you generally, just picked up completely the wrong colour. As I flicked my brush across. I'm going to get a little bit more white because it's starting to get a bit grey, my white. I seem to have lost any pure white. And I'm going to give my brush a bit of a white because it got a lot of blue on it just then. So one thing with the reflections you want to kind of bear in mind is that the reflections will look unusual if they don't match. Just realised I completely missed a tree on that right hand side. I could leave it out, but I'm actually going to put it in because it creates a nice little compositional boundary. So I'm just going to quickly block it in. It's sort of a slightly darker yellow than the other trees, which is nice as well, something a little bit different. Variety is always good in landscapes. Once again, managed to pick up a large clump of blue. So just get rid of that. So this is sort of the most complicated meeting in the image, where these trees overlap the water behind. Now you'll probably find it's difficult to really capture the detail in this overlap, just because you won't necessarily find it easy to get crisp thin lines running over, and there's quite a lot of sort of tracery going on. So what you want to go for is just kind of, if you blur your eyes, you're able to capture the kind of gist, I would say, of what you're looking at, rather than all the specific trunks. Just the relationship and the values and a general sense of the kind of shapes. If you can really capture the those shapes in paint, even with, say, a bigger brush like this, or kind of simple brush strokes, it'll make for a really nice effective image, quite a strong image. So certainly go for it, but don't be worried if you can't quite get it to look perfect. That's to be expected. I'm getting there with this. I'm not going to work too much into that tree line for the sake of this exercise. That's something, if I return to this painting in a future lesson, we can kind of go over how you might go about adding detail, how you can work over this sketch. Either if you were working outdoors and you were coming home, you let it dry for a day or something, and then you want to add some detail, you can definitely do so. The last portion that I haven't actually put in yet is a sort of dark shadow. Not sort of like a shadow, it's a semi-reflection. Get a nice colour for just underneath. It's just catching this set of trees. A few other little bits of sort of imperfections running across the lake, but contemplated putting them in, but probably for the sake of this exercise not quite worth it. Go back to here. Wipe off my brush. So we're just about done with this. Last thing I'm going to do is try to just catch some pure white. Add a few highlights into the sky. Just make use of our full value range. So up until this point I haven't actually put anything that's pure white into the painting, so just helps the sky to glow a bit. That's the luminousness of the piece. Might put a little bit to the water below as well. Just give the sense of it kind of capturing some of that luminosity from the sky. As I say, because it's a slightly patchier, well, slightly choppy water, not getting a perfect reflection of the clouds above. But yeah, that pretty much does it, I think. I just add a touch of white to the cloud above as well, just as it wraps up. Just soften some of these edges of the cloud so it's not quite so drawn. So we'll just make a slight adjustment to this this little portion of the water that doesn't quite match. Quickly get this smaller brush again. These are all quite minor adjustments. Yeah, I think we'll probably leave it at that. So there you have about roughly an hour-long sketch. Which is a kind of good length of time to work outdoors. You'll probably find usually limited to maybe, I don't know, 2 hours working. I mean, it depends on the conditions. If you've got sort of sunny weather, I'd say your window for working is shorter, or if it's really wet as well. Cloudy weather is probably the ideal weather to work in. So this kind of day, this reference that I took would be ideal. So you get some interesting cloud shapes, but the light wouldn't change too dramatically over the period of time that you're working. So you could work for kind of up to maybe, in the middle of the day on a cloudy day, you could maybe work up to 3 hours if you had enough time and energy to do so. But yeah, about 2 hours I'd say is probably the average length of time that you'll find you can actually work for various reasons, various environmental factors, or there's no point usually working beyond your limit because you'll start to make mistakes, so you're better off returning another day with the same painting which you could do, or taking a photo and working the rest of it from life, using what you kind of found out during your sketch. Yeah, there you there you have it. Just fiddling around now. Should probably stop doing so soon, just in case I mess anything up. I think that's a texture. Yeah, that's it. I'm going to leave it there. I hope you guys have enjoyed the video. If you're signed up to OCAD Studio, as always, you can get in touch, and if you create your own landscapes, send them through. If you have any questions about the video, you can write them below or get in touch with me directly. And I might bring it back out in a few weeks' time and do another set of lessons where we go back and refine and add detail to the image. But that's it for our kind of sketch level for it. And hopefully we'll be able to do one outdoors in the future as well. So yeah, thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you guys soon.